Have you two been plotting down here, or should I say, what else?
Are you very angry?
It's a lie.
Now, as you get older, you may find that certain films really don't age well. They become quite cringe or just corny. Not this one though. Not only is this movie even funnier to me as an adult, but it brings up a great point. Sometimes your worst enemy is your so called friend. Yikes. Let's get into it. So it's 1978, and we open up with Madeline, who is an actress on Broadway, and the play is trash. It's trash. And people are leaving out. They don't want nothing to do with this. And this whole intro goes on for far too long. Meanwhile, Helen's husband is infatuated.
She's sensational.
And he ends up giving her a standing ovation. And he's the only one to do so. So Helen heads backstage to meet Madeline, and this is where we realize that they are frenemies. They are friends for the sake of being friends. They really don't fuck with each other like that, honestly. And baby, when Madeline meets Ernest, oh, she is instantly plotting. You hear me? Plotting. And so they're like having a conversation, openly flirting in front of Helen. She's touching his face. Baby, the way I would have got her and him together, swiftly, you hear me? And then she has the nerve to show up at Ernest's job. At his job. Just look at him. Just look at him. Meanwhile, Helen is stressed because she's seen this all before. And then here go Ernest.
I have absolutely no interest in Madeline Ashton.
Bitch. Look. And then Helen was at the funeral. The way it would have been some slow singing and flower bringing. Look, so 7 years later, we flash forward to Helen, who is depressed. She's depressed. She got her cats. She's in her apartment. She done let herself go. She's getting evicted, and she's not caring about none of that. The only thing she's focused on is this movie where she repeatedly and obsessively watches Madeline getting unalived over and over again. So they end up busting in her apartment and kicking her out. Meanwhile, she's still trying to watch the last scene. So we go to her being in a mental hospital. She's wringing her hands still obsessed with Madeline and what happened with Ernest. And she speaks about this so much that every time they're in a meeting, she brings it up and she causes everyone else to get in distress. She's not over it. And I mean, that's something hard to get over. I mean, she basically took her future husband, and she's done this over and over again. But baby, Helen, you keep having her in your life. Why? Okay, we'll get to that. So her psychiatrist unintentionally plants a seed when she tells Helen that she has to completely eliminate Madeline from her mind. Baby, Helen only heard the eliminate, and she just ran with it. So we fast forward another 7 years, and we meet back up with Ernest and Madeline. And obviously the honeymoon stage is far gone. They're not even sleeping in the same bed at this point. And this is where Madeline receives Helen's book release invitation. And baby, Ernest is sleeping upstairs now, and he's sloshed. He's smashed. This is their new normal. And I mean, hey, the relationship started on a rocky foundation, so this is what happens. And he does not see it for Madeline anymore. He even tries to sneak out the house without her knowing, and she catches him, and she don't even give a damn. She could care less. And so here we realize that he's no longer a plastic surgeon. He works in a funeral home fixing people up for their funerals. And this is hilarious. This guy died while getting serviced. And look at his face, y'all. Look at his face. So ahead of Helen's book release party, Madeline goes to this spa to get refreshed and I guess to prep herself so she can look her best. And this spa is questionable. But anyway, so she's been there one too many times, clearly, because they're looking at her like, lady, we have done all that we can do. And in the middle of her trying to bribe the lady to give her another procedure, the owner sneaks in and he delivers this line that just, oh my God.
But unfortunately, we are mere mortals. We are restricted by the laws of nature.
So basically, even if she had $1 million, there's only so much they can do. Damn. So he ends up telling her that she has one more option, and that is a lady named Lissel who will give her what she's looking for. But she's not trying to hear that, so she tears up the card and she just decides to go to the book lunch as is. So later, Ernest and Madeline are heading to the book lunch and they are over each other.
Could you just not breathe?
Y'all, a clear sign that you are over somebody is when you cannot stand any little thing they do. She can't even stand this man breathing. Ciao. So while Ernest is getting his drink at this book lunch, he meets a family member of someone that he worked on, and she's praising him. She's like, oh my God, you did such a good job with the body. Like, how do you do what you do? And he says,
Spray paint.
I mean, he just said it like it was nothing. But anyway, so the night goes on and they're still looking for Helen. But the problem was they were not looking for the right Helen, because baby, Helen, they got her life together. She is looking good and Madeline is shocked. She's shocked. And Ernest wants to say hi. She's like, no. I'll go say hi first. And baby, this scene right here, oh my goodness. The way that regret had her turning her head like this, baby. Baby.
Mad? Help!
Girl, you knew you saw her. Stop playing. So they greet each other, as fake as possible. And then Madeline tries to take a dig at Helen, saying that she can't believe Ernest is so good to her and that he came at Helen's expense. And then Helen throws this at her.
Gosh, I'm glad you came. I didn't know if you would. I spoke to my PR woman and she said Madeline Ashton goes to the opening of an envelope.
So they continue talking, and this is where Helen loses me for a bit, because it's almost like she forgets what truly happened and that we saw it.
That was a long time ago. You didn't steal him. He went to you.
Girl.
I have never, ever blamed you.
Girl. And so obviously this is just to get under Madeline's skin, which works. She's in her feelings until she notices that Ernest and Helen have stepped away to have a private conversation, and she's not here for it. So she starts to listen in, and this is where we get a totally different story from earlier that she tells Ernest.
I want you to know something. I have never blamed you for leaving me.
You should have.
I will never forgive her for what she's done to you.
Girl, he's no victim. He willingly left you. So Madeline ends up overhearing this, and so now she knows what's up. So later on that night, she leaves the house, and she decides she wants to go over her little boo thing house and, get her little groove back. Child. So she arrives at his house and he's already preoccupied. He already has somebody over there, and she gets upset. So she leaves and he tells her hey, we look ridiculous together. Someone asked me, were you my mom? I don't need this. And so she's in it, okay? She's in her feelings. This is horrible. All this stuff is happening at the same time. So she's driving wildly and she ends up finding the card that the spa owner gave her earlier, and so she goes to meet Lissel and to see what all this is about. And baby, one thing for certain and two things for sure, Lissel ate. She ate. Even Madeline knew it. And while this is happening, Helen is actually at Madeline's house plotting on her used to be man. For what reason, I don't know. But back to Madeline. So Lissel is trying to convince Madeline about this potion and how it stops time, stops the aging process. She'll never grow old. And so there's a different price for everyone. And the price that she gives Madeline is not it. So like a drug dealer, she decides to give her a little taste. It pricks her finger with the potion and it works instantly. And now, baby, their price ain't too bad.
Check okay? Fine.
Baby, Lissel was a whole hustler. You hear me? So anyway, she gives her a warning after she gives her the poison, letting her know that it's gonna work for 10 years. And after that 10 years, before anyone gets suspicious, she must disappear from public view. Now, at first, Madeline is not with this because she's basically like, I'm given this beauty and, I won't age, but after so long, I won't be able to live my life. Like, I'll basically have to go into hiding. And you know what? She's just like, fuck it. So she ends up taking the potion. And then Lissel gives one last warning to her that she must take care of her body. She only gets one. Warning, warning. Anyway, so she takes the potion and baby, she's back to her 20s. The body is bodying.
I'm a girl.
So we go back to Helen and Ernest, who are having a conversation about him wanting to divorce Madeline. And so Helen reminds him that they are in California and she's going to take him for everything, or what's left. So they come up with a plan to basically get rid of Madeline. So the plan goes like this. What they're going to do is have Ernest to poison each glass with a narcanol. And then Helen is going to call Madeline and, basically get her to invite her to dinner. And then no matter what drink Madeline drinks from during the dinner, she's going to get the poison and she's going to die. And then after that, they're going to place her body in a car, make it look like she's been drinking and driving, dump a whole lot of alcohol on her, and then they're going to call the cops and say like, hey, we saw this, this drunk lady. She's a little close to the edge, and then they're going to push her over the edge of the cliff, and then they're going to be free to love each other. See, plans like this don't work at all. So as they're finalizing this BS plan, Madeline pulls up, Madeline 2.0, and so Helen has to sneak out. Madeline goes straight to her room. Meanwhile, Ernest is plotting, and she's admiring herself, looking at her body. And so Ernest knocks on the door like, hey, what you doing? And they instantly get into an argument. And baby, they read each other for filth. For filth.
I called you cheap, Madeline.
More like a broad.
Nothing.
Yes, you are broad.
You are
That's what I
nothing.
called you.
You're a tragic,
You're
boozy,
pathetic.
flaccid.
That's what you say, Madeline.
Flaccid.
Watch what you say, Madeline. I don't have to take this anymore.
So baby, they are going back and forth. I mean, just tearing each other to shreds. And so Ernest finally, he has enough. And he starts choking the mess out of Madeline. And finally, she's like on the edge of the stairs, and he realizes that he's let go at this point, and she's dangling, and she insults him. So he's like, bye. And she goes down the stairs, and he thinks like, oh my God, she's dead. I've done it. It's happening. And what does he do? What does he do? He calls this girl from the house phone. That's a Goodfellas reference, by the way. And meanwhile, while this is happening, she's like coming alive and she's walking towards him. Baby, she is backwards. Real like malignant vibes right here.
Sounds dry.
This whole time, she has not realized that her body is where her head is backwards and she's walking backwards. She's so busy trying to get him.
Madeline, look at yourself.
Huh? Ernest? My ass!
Baby, Ernest is still in shock and he's just watching all of this happen. And so he refuses to help her fix her neck. She fixes it herself, and he's like, look, we got to take you to the hospital. And clearly he is in a rush. So she's getting checked out by the doctor, and he's like flexing her hands, and she don't feel that. And that, it looks disgusting. So anywho, he checks her neck, and he's horrified. He then checks her pulse, and there's no pulse. So basically, like, all the checks he's been doing, she appears to be dead. And so he's like, look, this is above my pay grade. I'm about to go pull somebody else to look at you. And so Ernest goes to check on what he's doing. Madeline passes out. He comes back to the room. They think that Madeline's dead, so they're giving him like, oh, we're sorry for your loss. He's like, wait a minute, she's not dead. They done took this girl to the morgue. To the morgue. So he has to go down and find her. And once he gets to her, he makes it up in his mind that all of this strange stuff is happening because it's a sign that they're meant to be together. It makes no sense. So they end up heading home finally, and he drops off Madeline, and he leaves the home without seeing Helen, who's out there. She's out the loop. She doesn't know what's going on, so she's following him. And he's at the funeral home getting like all this spray paint and chemicals needed to fix up Madeline, because you know she's looking a hot mess at this point. So he's back at home experimenting, and he goes downstairs because he needs something else so that he can fix her up. When he goes downstairs, he runs into Helen, who is pissed because at this point she thinks he's doing something funny with the body. He's not involving her. Something weird is going on, and she's being hella loud. Like anybody in this world could hear her. And Madeline overhears this whole conversation, and baby, after this, she wants to smoke.
She was a man-eater, and she was a bad actress.
Yeah, she went way too far. Way too far. So Madeline comes downstairs and shows herself, and Helen is shocked, baby. She don't know what's going on.
It's a lie.
So Madeline walks off. Ernest goes after her. She done hit up the gun closet, and she walks up to Helen like everything's cool. Baby, she pulls out that gun and she releases on that ass. So after all this happens, Madeline is cool, calm and collected, and Ernest is running around scared because he's nervous that a neighbor has heard or seen what's going on. Madeline don't care. She up here threatening him that if he don't help her get rid of this body, that she's gonna call the cops. So he has no choice but to help her get rid of the body. And while this is happening, baby, Helen comes back to life, which surprises the hell out of both of them. But Madeline already knows, like, there's only one way that this can happen. And so she puts two and two together and looks for the pin on Helen. And baby, math was mathing, no matter how much Helen tried to deny.
You're a walking lie, and I can see right through you.
So Helen has had enough, and so she decides, like, she wants to smoke, let's fight it out. So she gives her a shovel, and they have a good old fighting match, right? So this whole time, Ernest don't want nothing to do with this. He thinks this is crazy. This is above him at this point. He's like, look, I'm about to go. Y'all can take care of this. And y'all, we get the backstory behind why they are the way that they are. And it turns out that Madeline been taking all Helen's men since high school, all because Helen and her friends considered her to be cheap. Child, so they finally sit down and talk it out. Helen admits that she thought she was cheap, and Madeline admits that she's been taking her men on purpose. And so all of a sudden they cool. I don't get it. Well, after all this, they head upstairs to tell Ernest that they're back cool, and he's over it. He wants to go. This is way above his pay grade. And so he basically lets them know, like, hey, I'll fix y'all only if y'all let me leave after I do. And they agree to it. Madeline is over him, and Helen is finally, seeing the light. Baby, they gonna find another man and repeat this whole cycle again. Anyway, so next day, after he fixes them, he is packing up his stuff and he is getting out of there. So the girls are looking at each other, and this is when Madeline notices that some skin is hanging off of Helen, and she picks it off. But then they have the thought, like, if this happens again, we won't have Ernest to fix us. So they come up with a plan to basically poison him with the drink and drag him to Lissel so that she can give him the potion. That way he can live forever so that he can fix them forever. What a plan. It don't work though, so they have to smash him over the head with the vase in order to drag him to Lissel's to get the potion. So Ernest wakes up at Lissel's, and at this point he doesn't know what's going on. And side note, I need this robe. She was serving looks in this movie, I swear. So she tries to convince him to get the potion, telling him the benefits of it, how he'll never grow old. And like a dealer again, she offers him a taste, and he sees that it works, and he's like, okay, maybe I can do this. So she almost has him convinced. I mean, she is selling this potion, baby. And it makes you wonder, like, what does she get from this? But then he realizes, like, this is not it. Like, okay, I'll look good, but I'll be watching everyone around me die. This is not what I want. And she's shocked because she's not used to this answer at all.
You people all have to be stopped!
Dick, Tom, Harry! Get the potion from him!
So they're chasing Ernest. Ernest is running around this mansion trying to find a way out. He ends up walking into a party that's going on, and the girls see him and they realize that he has a vial of the potion. And so they're like, look, we got to get to him. So this man, instead of finding a way out the front door, he goes in the elevator and goes up. Why do they do this in movies? And so he gets chased by these Dobermans, and he wounds up on the roof of the mansion, and he's trying to wiggle his way down, and he ends up slipping and falling and getting stuck on like this pole thing. The girls come out and see him, and then they're talking to him, trying to convince him, like, hey, take the potion. It looks like you're gonna fall, but if you take the potion, you'll live and you can fix us. You know, this could be a win-win situation. And he's looking at them like, you know what? Y'all want this potion more than y'all want me, so I'm just gonna let this go. And baby, the look that they give when he does that is hilarious. So Ernest ends up smashing into the indoor pool down below, and he walks off amazingly, and he gets a car from valet, speeds off. He ends up going to the house, getting his bags, and going to the airport. The girls go to the house first, miss him. Baby, Ernest is gone. He's never coming back. And so they come to the realization, like, they're in this forever together. They would have never expected this, and they're just kind of stuck to watch over each other until they find their next victim. It's really sad because this cycle is just going to keep on going. So we fast forward to Ernest's funeral, and luckily he ended up living a full life. He got married, had a whole bunch of kids, then he adopted a whole bunch of kids. Meanwhile, the girls are still hanging on by a thread of loose skin. And they're laughing at the funeral, being all disrespectful and rude. And then Helen starts crying over Ernest. And while she's crying, she wipes off like a patch of skin. It's just, they are a hot mess at this point. So they decide to leave the funeral, and as they're leaving, the preacher states that Ernest learned the secret to eternal life. So they stop in their tracks because they feel like they need to hear this, because clearly they are falling apart. And he just states that he'll live forever through the people that loved him and through the people that he loved, and that's the secret to having an eternal life and to live forever. They're not trying to hear that though.
Blah, 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 blah.
So they're leaving the funeral, and baby, the girls are melting. And so they're arguing about a can of spray paint that they lost, and they're trying to find it. And then Helen ends up tripping over that same can of spray paint. And here they are, just falling apart. The end. So here are my final thoughts. We should not force friendships. And clearly, this is what Helen and Madeline did. And for what? I mean, Helen thought she was cheap. Madeline slept with all Helen's men. Then you kept bringing new men around her as a test. And then fell into the deep end when they left you for her. You weren't clueless. You knew what was up. You knew what she was about to do. And she did it every time. I mean, why stay in each other's lives? What are y'all like gaining from this? And then Ernest went to where he wanted to go, period. And if he passed the test, he was going to leave Helen eventually for somebody else. Like, I hate to say it, but that's what it was giving. And what was the whole purpose of the potion? I mean, it was just to look good, to look younger. I mean, but it came at a extreme cost. I mean, all that to hold on to youth that was long gone. I mean, long gone. And they could have avoided all of this by accepting themselves in their situations. Helen ending the friendship a long time ago, but even after Ernest ending the friendship, moving on with her life, you know, doing what she wants to do, writing books or meeting someone else, she would have had the opportunity to do that. And then Ernest and Madeline, you know, moving on with their lives, and Madeline accepting that she's a terrible actress and try to like go into something else. But yeah, all of this could have been avoided if they would have just accepted them growing older, aging, realizing that life is not ending, that they can like move on. But they were just stuck in this loop. And baby, once Ernest would have left, like they would have found somebody else. And then this whole cycle would have started over again. And like I said, for what? Like, what was the purpose of them hanging on to like a dead friendship? I mean, it served no purpose. But anyway, so this movie is one of my favorites, and I hadn't watched it in a while. But it wasn't until I watched it for this video that I realized like this movie is still and will probably forever be fucking hilarious. I really enjoyed doing this review. With that being said, I thank you for watching, and please comment, like, and subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you next time. Bye.